Hi, and welcome to Smart Training 365. This is Mo Larby, and I'm with the one and only Doug Brignole. How you doing, Doug?
Hey, Mo. Good. How are you?
I'm very good and very pleased with the reactions we got from the last few videos. People start learning about what we are teaching. We definitely got more exposure and more questions too, because I noticed in the comment section, people start asking more questions, and which is why today we're going to talk about few things that people ask about. And let's start with the number one question. Someone asked if Doug will train Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and prepare him for a role in a movie. Okay, like now everyone sees that he's getting ready for a big movie. And he's getting in shape, and he's sharing on his Instagram and YouTube videos working out in his own gym. And you can see in the gym that is hammer equipment and only one cable machine, like dual cable machine. So if the producer or his manager will come to you and say, Doug, we want the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to be ready for this show in 6 months from now, and there will be scenes where he will be shirtless, and we want to focus on his shoulders and traps and chest, and we want him to be this way. How will you work with him?
Well, the same way I do my own contest training, right? I mean, that's contest training, right? You have a date. You want to look good for a particular date. You want to peak up, right? So, you know, what's interesting about traditional weight training is that, and I've seen Dwayne Johnson work out, and he works out fast, and he does a lot of high reps, and he does a lot of supersets, and he does a lot of burning, and there's this idea that the more you sweat and the more it burns, the more productive it is. And when we observe that with other people, the subliminal message is that this is what's required to get this physique. But the fact is it's not required. Now, sweating like that and burning like that won't prevent you from getting maximally muscular, but it doesn't really help you get maximally muscular. And that's the important thing, is you're wasting energy. You're wasting. Now, you might say, well, I'm not wasting it because I enjoy it. And I go, all right. If you enjoy it, do it because you enjoy it, but don't do it because you think that's the only way. There is a better way. And if I knew about the BRIG-20 when I first started in my 20s, I would have totally trained that way from the very beginning.
So let's dive in a little bit more in details, because I know people would like to know how you will do that with him. So let's say they say his movie will be 6 months from now. So what is the first thing, if you meet him face to face, what is the first thing that you will ask him or you will do with him?
Well, the first thing I would ask him is just, you know, what have you been doing? And the reason I would ask him, what have you been doing? What's been your workout schedule? Is because I want to be able to get him to understand what will be different about our program and why. That's what's important, is the why. Because, you know, what happens to people like Dwayne Johnson is that, and first of all, it's obvious he's got great genetics, right? Yeah. So it's obvious that almost no matter what he does, he's going to get a good result. So, but in his mind, what he has done has worked. In his mind, the condition he has today is proof that the way he trained is either the only way or the best way. So someone like that, who's entrenched in those beliefs, needs to have an understanding of what a different method is like, what our method is like, and why our method will be as productive or more productive than the method that requires less burning, less fatigue, less sweating. You know, I mean, some people prefer less sweating, right? Some people jump at that chance, but other people think, oh, no, if I don't sweat, if I don't get that burn, it's just not working. It's like, you have to understand the mechanism first. You have to understand why this is going to be more productive. What does the muscle actually know? And what doesn't it know? What doesn't it care about? Before you say, all right, I'm willing to give it a try. And then I would say, look, if you're reluctant, you understand intellectually now, you understand how and why this method would work as good or better. Let's give it 2 weeks. Let's do this for 2 weeks. And then you tell me how you feel after these 2 weeks.
So what will happen during this 2 weeks?
Well, we would have our workouts, the Brignole 20 workouts, the BRIG 20 workouts. and he would see and feel every day. I mean, just as you know, Jordan Hunt today, or Huntley earlier today, said, you know, this mind muscle thing was always sort of baffling to me before. You know, when I was doing a bench press, I'd feel it more in my arms, and I thought maybe I'm not mind muscling connection in my chest very well. It's like, no, when you do the right exercise, you totally feel it in the chest. You totally feel it in the target muscle, even if you're trying to think about it or not. He will feel the difference in every single muscle he's working, and he will feel the joints much more relieved despite having far more muscle ache.
Mm-hmm. And some people will say, well, when he works out, he's like sweating buckets. Will he also sweat same way with the BRIG-20?
No.
And is it something that he will like, you think?
Well, that's why I said from the beginning, it's if he's emotionally married to the idea of sweating. And you know, a lot of people say, I love a good workout. I love a good workout. And they're thinking of the sweating and the huffing and the puffing and the burning, right? They're thinking of that. But that is not the same thing as the muscle doing what the muscle wants to do or can do best under the right circumstances. So, you know, I would just emphasize to Rock and to anyone else, I would say, look, there's two things you want to focus on. One is, what will the muscle get from this workout? Mm-hmm. That is completely separate from how you feel during the workout. If you think those things are one and the same, if you think the only way to get the muscle to get the best kind of stimulation is for you to go through this agony of suffering and sweating and panting, you know, and burn. If you think that's the only way, then those two concepts will come together and you'll think they're one, but they're actually separate concepts.
Mm-hmm. And Doug, how you will deal with, let's say, okay, now you know where he is, you work with him 2 weeks, but you know that he has to be ready for 6 months, and knowing like you didn't work with him before to see like how fast he progressed. How will you figure out that?
Well, I don't think I have to figure it out. In other words, determining how fast he's progressing is sort of up to him. Like I say for, you know, bodybuilding training, you know, all we can do is put the very best kind of training and the very best kind of diet and the very best kind of recovery plan in place. And then that will take its course given your genetics. Right. So now anyone who's been doing this a while, and obviously Dwayne Johnson will have a sense of how fast his progress has come before. Right. Not only how fast his progress has come before, but also what the cost of that progress has been, how you feel, how your joints feel, etc. So I think that in 2 weeks, and certainly in 4 weeks, is more than enough time for him to see, wow, I'm getting better progress without the wear and tear, without the agony that I thought was essential for this kind of muscle development.
Mm-hmm. Will you train him once a day or twice a day, or depending on his schedule?
Well, you know, right now I'm splitting my workouts into 5 groups. And the reason I do that is because my training partner and I want to keep our workouts somewhere right around 1 3/4 hours to 2 hours. And when I say 1 3/4 to 2 hours, you have to keep in mind that that's not, you know, sweating, huffing, puffing for 2 hours. That is allowing the right amount of rest time between sets. In other words, if you rush through the workout, then you will have lingering fatigue on every subsequent set, and you won't get the most out of that next set.
Right.
Right. So you need to rest in between sets enough time to allow that muscle to recover enough to get the most out of the next set. And that ends up making for a longer workout. So if he says, well, I don't have 2 hours to work out, we can say, okay, fine, we'll split it up into 2 1-hour workouts. Now, if he says, you know, I don't mind working out 3 hours, 4 hours a day, then maybe we can even speed that up a little bit. Instead of doing a 5-way split, we'll do a 4-way split and make each workout just a little bit longer. Now, when we talk about a 4-way split or a 3-way split or a 5-way split, we're talking about recovery time, right? So a person's recovery, the time they need between body part workouts will depend a little bit on their age, their health, and whether or not they're supplementing, right? So if you're supplementing, you can afford more frequent workouts. You're recovering faster. But if you're not supplementing, as I'm not, you need a little bit more time to recover. So a 5-day split is fine.
And regarding the weights, is he going to, are you going to use heavy weights with him, or that will be determined based on the tests that you will do?
No, I mean, as I said before, I would train him the way I would train a person getting ready for a bodybuilding contest. And that is that, yes, we will use heavy weight. And heavy, as I've said before, heavy is defined as the number of reps that you are limited to doing in a given set. If you're limited to doing 4 reps or limited to doing 6 reps in a given set, that's heavy weight. It doesn't matter what the actual number is. What matters is what the muscle is experiencing. The muscle experiences, quote unquote, heavy weight when it cannot do more than 4 or 6 reps. Now, we don't start with that, of course. We have to warm that up.
Right.
But it's progressive, and you don't ever need to train to failure. You can theoretically do your final set to failure if you want, although it's not necessary, not essential, and does compromise some of the recovery time.
Okay, so Doug, that means you're recommending basically the same thing we're recommending to everyone. It's not really something special.
Right, exactly.
You know, it doesn't matter what the name is, whether it's Dwayne Johnson or Michael Jordan or me or someone like who never worked out. It's going to be the same thing. So why is that for people who don't know why?
Well, look, the first thing I'll say is it's the same for Dwayne Johnson, because I'm assuming that Dwayne Johnson's goals are the same as mine or that of a bodybuilder. Michael Jordan's goals will not be the same as mine. Michael Jordan's goals will be slightly different. Assuming he was still playing basketball, competitive basketball, then we would have to do some motions that are sports specific.
Right.
And doing exercises that are sports specific require time and energy. And so you can't add that time and energy to an otherwise fully exhaustive workout.
All right.
Right. So we might have to cut back a little bit on some of the BRIG-20 in terms of volume, in terms of number of sets. In other words, when we do the BRIG-20, all of the skeletal muscles are optimally worked. How much they're worked in terms of volume, right, depends on what your goal is. So yes, if you're a basketball player, baseball player, soccer player, whatever you happen to be, you want all of your muscles to be strong. So you want to do all of those BRIG-20 movements. But you may not want to do as many sets because your goal isn't muscle growth, right? Your goal is probably more speed. So yes, you strengthen all these muscles. Maybe you do half as many sets as I might do. And then you spend the remainder of the time working on more sport specific. Could be plyometrics. It could be, agility training. Could be all kinds of things.
Yeah, what I meant by doing the same thing, meaning you're going to be using the same exercises, but the numbers of sets and reps, that will be different based on the goal.
Exactly.
Right. All right, you heard it. So if you want maximum muscle growth, you can use the BRIG-20. As you said, Doug, you will be using that with Dwayne Johnson or any person who has the same goals. It's the same movements. You know, things are getting back to normal slowly in some places. And I'm excited because I know that last year in February, we were about to start our seminar tours. And the first one was scheduled in Toronto.
Right.
I already had 200 people ready to come to that seminars.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And also in California and Dubai. So now I'm really excited because that's going to start again. And I would like to tell those who owns gyms and interested in our program that we are open to for seminars. They can contact us and we can tell them how this thing works. I think they will benefit a lot from what we do and from the programs.
Right.
Yeah.
It's as you know, it's a program that we offer, which is to say, okay, you would need this many chairs, this much seating in order to get this many people at approximately this many dollars in order to cover the expenses of the seminar, and then profit yourself.
Yeah.
So the mistake that some people make is that they don't even have a room that's big enough for enough seats. Right. And so that means that, even if you charge what could be considered a reasonable amount and you fill the room, you still haven't covered your expenses.
Right.
Right. So the idea is to profit from having us come and do a seminar at your place. Right.
Yeah.
And we can give you the numbers that you will have to meet in order to make it so that you charge this much per person. You get this many people. These are the expenses. This is the flight. This is the hotel. This is the fee for my speaking. And then you need to clear probably about this many dollars. So in order, you need to have this many seats.
Right, right. And I'm also supporting the organizers with my programs, so they can contact us and I'll let them know the details.
Right, terrific.
Well, yeah, thank you very much, Doug, for your time. It was always interesting and fascinating. If our viewers want to check your book, they can find it on dougbrignole.com or Amazon. Yep. And if they are interested in our programs, the BRIG-20, the True Bodybuilding, or the online certification program, they can find the link in the description below. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.